This lesson attempts to show that both countries can gain when they trade with each other. While we're going to talk about countries as trading partners, the same principles apply to trade in general. Trade between Nebraska for wheat and Florida for oranges follows the same general principles that we'll describe here, as does any trade that occurs when you trade your labor for income from your employer, and then in turn purchase apples, oranges, wheat, clothes, video games produced by other people. The same advantages occur that we're going to describe here. The first thing we do is we distinguish between absolute advantage and comparative advantage. Absolute advantage is based on how much a country can produce. The more a country can produce, the greater its absolute advantage. Comparative advantage, though, is based upon the opportunity cost of producing a good. How much steel does one company give up when it produces more movies? How much steel does another company give up when it produces movies? That determines the comparative advantage. A country may have an absolute advantage in everything, but it cannot have a comparative advantage in everything. We then turn and talk about the price of trade. The price of trade measures how much of one good one country gives up to obtain another good in trade with another country. For example, the United States exports wheat to Japan, and Japan exports cars to the United States. The price of trade would be how much wheat the U.S. gives up when it imports one car, and it refers to the price, to the amount of cars, the number of cars that Japan gives up when it imports a bushel or ton of wheat. We then turn to the advantages of trade. We show that both countries gain from trade when two conditions are met. First, both firms must specialize in activities where they have the comparative advantage. Both firms need to be producing the good where they have the lower opportunity cost of production. Second, the price of trade must be between the two opportunity costs. When those two conditions are met, both countries can obtain more goods and services than they would if they did not trade. We've concluded the lesson by pointing out that trade restrictions help some people. The benefit that some people receive from trade restrictions is one reason that people oppose free trade agreements. We conclude by showing that the cost of saving a job through a trade restriction is usually very high, and much cheaper ways of, quote, saving jobs exist.